Yo, what's good, guys? It's your boy Tacho here, and we're back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. Alright, let's talk about Xane today because this guy has been the flavor of the month ever since he came out. So, he's been probably the most talked about 4-star unit ever. Like, I can't recall any 4-star unit that's had this much attention. I guess there was the Kid Marth too, who was also really good. But it's pretty obvious that Kid Marth is good. He has Rapier and Hero's Blood. So it didn't take a genius to figure out why Kid Marth was going to work. But I feel like when it comes to Xane, there's been so much debate. Like, some people think he's awesome, some people think he sucks. So let's actually get to the bottom of that. We're going to do a showcase of him today in Aether Raids. But before we go ahead and get started with that, we're just going to talk about him for a bit. And I'm going to give you guys my opinion as to whether or not Xane is actually good. So if we take a look at his weapon, Joker's Wild, it's going to grant him a flat HP plus 5, which is amazing based on the way the rest of his effects work. And also, his attack, speed, defense, and res is going to be equal to the highest respective stat from among allies that are within 2 spaces of him during combat. Calculates each stat bonus independently, and even if his stats are the highest, he's still going to steal those other stats. So what does that mean? Let's say you have a unit within 2 spaces that has 60 attack, and that unit has the highest attack within 2 spaces. Xane is going to reflect that on himself, and he is going to have 60 attack. This is counted as an in-combat buff, so you don't have to worry about him having blue buffs or anything like that, which virtually makes him immune to panic effects. And this is one of the arguments I've been hearing about Xane lately. People say if you're going to use a stat ball tank unit, then why would you bother copying their stats onto Xane when you could just use the stat ball in the first place? Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, Xane is immune to panic, so you can't really get him with panic ploy or anything like that. Anything you do to his stats don't even matter because he's stealing everyone else's stats. And he's also copying any of the stat changes that his allies may have. So let's say that unit that I was talking about that had 60 attack, let's say they had plus 7 from Legendary Azura, they would be at 67 attack, and Xane is going to copy that, blue buffs and all. So he's going to have 67 effective attack during combat, which is nuts. And it's a really cheeky way for him to gain blue buffs without actually gaining blue buffs, if that makes any sense. So you're free to just buff him with plus 7 to all stats by buffing somebody else, and then he's going to steal all of those stats, and there's nothing the foes can do to panic him and reverse those bonuses. So really cool stuff there. But again, he does also copy debuffs that may be in play, and if it turns out that his stats are higher than one of the allies in 2 spaces, he is still going to copy the lower stat and reduce his own points. So my Xane has 33 res, but if I had a unit within 2 spaces of him that had less than that, like maybe 18 res or something, and I didn't have anyone else with a better res stat in 2 spaces, he will lower his own res stat and copy the 18 res. So you do have to watch out. To really make the most out of this guy, you're going to have to be very selective about who you're keeping in 2 spaces of him. But I don't really think that's all that difficult to do. As long as you're playing smart and you know what his strengths and weaknesses are, you can get away with it for sure. And just to go back to that argument from earlier, where people say instead of using Xane to copy the stats of your stat ball, why not just use the stat ball in the first place? Well, Xane does have even more advantages to consider. So just using Brave Edelgard as an example of a stat ball. Brave Edelgard is a green unit, and she's also an armored unit, whereas Xane is colorless and he's infantry type. So red units don't matter, effective against armor doesn't matter, Xane does not have to worry about any of that. No one really uses effective against colorless on their defense teams, and the most common users of that are Cecilia and Fallen Leon, I would say. But they don't really offer all that much offensive power on a defense team, so you're rarely ever going to see units like that. Typically, people run them on offense as a counter pick, but when it comes to defense teams, people just stack their defenses with really big firepower units like Ophelia and stuff. So it's going to be very rare that Xane actually has to deal with effective against colorless. And also, being an infantry unit, there's virtually nothing that's going to have type effective damage on him. There are 2 weapons that can deal effective damage to him, the Poison Dagger and the Kitty Paddle, but no one really runs those weapons, and both of those weapons have very low mites and they can't be refined. So I don't think it's likely that you're ever going to have to deal with effective damage with Xane, which is nice, especially for a stat ball like him. And the other really nice thing about using Xane is that being an infantry type unit, he's got access to all those crazy infantry locked skills, like Null Follow-Up, Null Sea Disrupt, Lull skills, Special Spiral, etc. The list just goes on and on. The sky is the limit when it comes to Xane, which is why I really like this guy. So quickly, let's go ahead and talk about the build that I'm going to be running today before we actually begin the showcase. So I've got Close Counter, Null Follow-Up, and Attack Smoke. Attack Smoke is pretty easy to get. You just got to sacrifice a 4-star Kaze to get it. Close Counter and Null Follow-Up, though, a little bit more premium end for fodder skills. I do feel like Close Foil would be a little better on him, but I didn't have the Close Foil fodder readily available to just give it to him. So I went with Close Counter instead. Still going to be nice to be able to counterattack Dragon-type foes. And anybody that owns the Fey Pass is about to get Close Counter from the Resplendent Takumi anyway. So I feel like that's going to be the perfect choice to sacrifice him into and give Close Counter to Xane. Also, if you haven't already done so, you can go to the Compile shop and choose the Fates path. And in there, you're going to be able to get the Dancing Xander, who has Close Counter, as well as the Adrift Corin M, who comes with Null Follow-Up. So even though these skills are a little bit premium, they are still free-to-play accessible if you haven't already taken them from the shop. So that is nice. Okay, but I think I've rambled on enough about why I think Xane is good. Let's actually go ahead and take him for a spin in Aether Raids and see if he can put his money where his mouth is. Alright, so typically, when I do these showcases, I like to fight the top 5 people on my friends list. But it's a little bit early into the season right now, so instead of doing that, we're going to fight some of the other YouTubers instead, which I think is going to be pretty funny. Alright, so we're starting things off against Glitter Valkyrie. And Glitter Valkyrie is, of course, a giant fan of Claude and Xander. So she's got plus 10s on basically both of the Claudes, and a Dancing Xander at plus 10. That's pretty rare. He does have good defense, and he has a chance to avoid Milla's isolation. But not my Milla, though, because I have a plus 10 Milla. I've also given her Fortress Defense and Res 3. So she's going to be the perfect choice to support my Xane with and give him some crazy stats. Milla, of course, has one of the nuttiest defense and res stat combos in the game. So for defense, she's definitely going to be our girl. Also, if you have Milla, you're pretty much always going to be running her in Aether Raids. So I think she's the perfect candidate to have as one of the supporters for Xane. And for the offensive stats, for attack and speed, I'm supporting him with Layla. So Layla comes with Life and Death 4, which is just giving her plus 7 to her hard stats, and then minus 5 to defense and res, which is not even a problem for Xane because he's only stealing the attack and speed stats from that. So imagine, this is a unit that has access to Fortress Defense and Res 3 and Life and Death 4, and he doesn't have to worry about the stat decrements that those skills normally come with. So it's a pretty cheap way to just inflate his stats even higher. Okay, so here comes a Brave Claude at plus 10, doing absolutely no damage to Xane. We are supported by Milla here. Milla also comes with Nurturing Breath too, so she can give even more stats to Xane when she's close by. And I've also given both Milla and Layla Close Guard and Distant Guard for the Sacred Seals. So we're just turning Xane into an Omega stat ball here, so he can get the job done even easier. Alright, we've pretty much routed Glitter Valkyrie's team, and all she's got left now is Sothis. Not a problem, we can just take this fight at our own pace. But before we get rid of Sothis, we're going to want to break both of the pots. Okay, I can actually do some funky tactics here to jump Milla right behind Xane and then smite him down. And I can also make sure Layla is in 2 spaces so we gain some stats. We're not gaining any defense and res, so right there you'll notice on the status screen, we're at minus 13 defense and 14 res. And that's because, of course, Layla doesn't have the best defensive stats. So right there, that is a showcase of how you want to be careful with who's actually close by to Xane. But there, it didn't really matter. It was just Sothis, so we don't have too much to worry about against her. Alright, next up, we're going to be fighting Wylia. So Wylia is a giant stand for Julia and Deirdre, and she's got them pretty much all at plus 10 with crazy skills like impacts and whatnot. Now, this is going to be a good showcase of null follow-up that I have on Xane. He's going to be able to ignore the loss of his follow-up attack from those impact effects and still be able to attack twice. Alright, so right there what I did was I decided to attack Salif because he has Infantry Pulse. And if I can get rid of this guy on turn 1, I can pretty much disrupt the Infantry Pulse chain on Wylia's team, and her units are not going to be able to start with specials right away. That is one way you can deal with Infantry Pulse teams. If you have an option to attack on turn 1 and get rid of somebody, definitely go for it so you can stop them from all starting with special attacks. Okay, right here what we're going to do is we're actually going to get some mileage out of Layla. So I've had Layla for a while now, and I haven't really been able to come up with the best unit to support with her. And I think Xane is a pretty solid option. So with the combo of Layla, Mila, and Xane, I pretty much have a strong core for Aether Raids offense now. Not that I didn't already in Light Season, but I mean, it is nice to have some more options. Alright, so Xane is just working on these guys here. Look at this. Fallen Julia is doing absolutely no damage to Xane. That's nuts, man. Fallen Julia is one of the toughest units in the game to deal with, and we just shrugged her off like nothing. With a 4-star unit that has no investment, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, just once again, to all the naysayers that think Xane isn't that good, he's only a 4-star, man. Like, what more could you possibly want from a 4-star summon? Alright, so there goes Wylia's team. Alright, so next up we're going to go up against Speedy Hawk. And Speedy Hawk's team is kind of a mix between beasts and then defensive heroes. So he's got Sothis and Bramimon to reduce lift loss. He's got Dimitri at plus 7, okay. Alright, now null follow-up is going to wreck Dimitri. It's also going to wreck Tibarn, because Tibarn's not going to be able to dive bomb and hit me twice in a row. So, again, null follow-up just being a really good skill for Aether Raids. I do think there are some other options you could go with, though. Like, maybe you could go for lull attack and res, which is going to be solid in basically every matchup. But you could also go for special spiral or null sea disrupt for cav lines or anything like that. You really just have to be creative with what skills you want to give him. He is a very versatile unit, though, so a lot of things will work out just fine on him. And for the C slot, I think maybe Pulse Smoke would be a little better than Attack Smoke. But of course, that's premium level fodder, so I wasn't able to get that ready for this showcase. Alright, here is a New Year Selkie. Basically immune to damage from Xane, because she has damage reduction and this crazy high res stat. So I'm going to have to target her defense, and that's where Layla and Air are going to come into play. So I'm going to have to attack that Selkie first with one of my dagger units. Now, I was thinking to attack with Layla, but if I do that, they're going to swap places. And I don't really want Layla to be in harm's way right now. So we're going to attack first with Air, and then I'm going to be able to finish off Selkie with Xane. Okay, but we definitely don't want to put him to the left-hand corner, because if I do that, then Dimitri's going to be able to attack Air. So I'm going to attack from the right-hand side, and then I can just quickly get the dance on Air with Peony and get her out of the way. Alright, so here comes Dimitri. Getting completely bodied by this 4-star unit. And Bramimon, the bane of everyone's existence. Man, Xane wrecks Bramimon so badly. Because our attack is not going to be over 50. So he's not able to gain the +5 to all stats. And he's not able to do anything with Impenetrable Dark. Because, of course, Xane is not gaining outside buffs from his allies based on the way Joker's Wild works. He's getting them from his own weapons, so there's nothing Bramimon can really do to stop Xane. Alright, here comes Leanne up next. And finally is just the Sothis left, and we're free to go ahead and break the rest of the pots at our own leisure. Alright, so let's put her over there. Okay, so Sothis is chasing after Layla. I guess that makes sense, because Layla has the lowest defense on this team. But I can pretty much just move my units at our own pace, and we'll be able to win on the next turn. Alright, so we can do some shenanigans here to get Layla to the top of the map and break that one Aether pot. And then I can just jump Xane in front of Peony and get the attack off. Alright, pretty good so far. And we're just going to do one more fight here to close out the video. So this time we're going to be fighting Link King Owens. Now, Link King Owens was actually way better than me in Aether Raids way back when. But I don't know what happened, and he stopped caring about playing the modes, so he's only at 39 gold thrones now. I guess it's his own decision. You can't really expect people to try hard forever, so I guess that's the thing. But we're definitely going to want to have Milla on the right-hand corner so we can inflict isolation on Lysithea and Azura here. Okay, and as long as we keep Xane right there, we should be fine. I'm going to want to make sure that Layla is in 2 spaces of him, though, so we're going to move Peony up 1 and Layla to the left 1. Alright, here comes Lyn doing absolutely nothing. Alright, so now what we got to do is figure out how we're going to get rid of Edelgard, and then if we can get rid of Lysithea as well, that should cover all the threats. I'm not too worried about his dancers dealing any real damage to me. Alright, so we can attack first with Layla and then swap places. And then we can pretty much go ahead and finish off Edelgard. And big brain play right here. I came up with this one where I can dance on Layla now and jump her in front of Xane. And regardless of whether or not that's a bolt trap or not, who cares? We're just going to negate it with Disarm Trap. And we can go ahead and get the finish on Lysithea. Alright, so we got a lot of mileage out of Layla in this fight. Layla's really good. I've been dying to do a showcase of her, but up until this point, I couldn't really figure out who I wanted to support her with. But I do think Xane is like the perfect choice. He makes use of Life and Death 4 for sure, and then he can also make a lot of use out of swapping spaces. Alright, so all that's left now is that Brave Hector. And we can pretty much just finish him off at our own pace. This is really why you don't want to have armored units on your defense team, unless they have Armor March access, because otherwise they're just a sitting duck when they're the last unit left. Alright, right there should be good. We have everyone in 2 spaces, so Xane is just going to wreck shop. And we can just go ahead and attack for the win, and there you go. So overall, pretty solid showcase. It's not like this is an unrealistic team either. Like, Layla, Milla, and Xane is easily a 3 set of units that you could run on any offense team for light season. I was running triple mythics though, because I just have a lot of merges on them and it scores higher for me. But if you don't have a lot of merges on your light mythics, you could easily just swap out one of them for the bonus unit. Like Air or Peony, you don't really need them for the Xane strategy, because they don't really offer too much to him in terms of stats. It is nice to have Peony for the dancing though, so I would recommend keeping her at least. But that's pretty much all for the showcase today. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing Xane in action, and If you were on the fence on whether or not he's actually good, then maybe this was able to help clear the air for you. Or maybe you watched the showcase and you still think he sucks, then there's not really much I can do to sway your opinion on that. All I can really do is show you guys why I think he's good and then show him off. And if you still don't think he's good, then that's completely your call. We don't all have to agree on the same thing. But anyways, that's all for now. So thanks so much to everyone for watching the video. And as always, this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, everybody. And I will catch you guys again in the next one.